I once worked with a CEO, let me call him David, who had built a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. When I walked into his corner office for our first meeting, I was struck by something unexpected. Here was a man who had achieved everything our society says should make you happy. Yet sitting across from me was someone who looked utterly exhausted, almost defeated. David leaned forward, put his head in his hands, and said something I'll never forget. "Stephen, I feel like I'm running on a treadmill that someone keeps making faster. The harder I work, the more behind I feel. I've got all the productivity systems, all the latest techniques, but I'm still drowning. What am I missing?" Now, in my years of working with people from all walks of life, I've heard this same cry for help hundreds of times. You see, David had fallen into what I call the efficiency trap. The belief that the answer to life's challenges is simply doing more, faster, better. But here's what I've learned, and then here's the paradigm shift that changed David's life completely. The problem isn't that we need to do more. The problem is that we've forgotten who we need to become. Most people are focused on what I call the personality ethic, techniques, quick fixes, strategies to manage their external world better. But there's a deeper approach, what I call the character ethic, the understanding that sustainable effectiveness flows from the inside out, from who we are, not just what we do. You see, we are what we repeatedly do. That's an ancient truth. But here's what most people miss. Our daily habits don't just shape our productivity, they shape our character. And character, my friends, determines destiny. For the next few minutes, I want to share with you 7 daily habits that transformed David's life and have transformed thousands of others. These aren't productivity techniques. They're character-building practices, rooted in what I call natural laws of human effectiveness. When you align your daily actions with these timeless principles, something remarkable happens. You don't just become more productive, you become the kind of person who naturally creates extraordinary results in every area of life. You become, in the truest sense, unstoppable. The first daily habit that will transform your character and make you truly unstoppable is what I call morning mission alignment. Now let me tell you why this habit is so fundamental to everything else we'll discuss. You see, there's a natural law that governs all human effectiveness, and it's this: private victory precedes public victory. Before you can lead others, before you can achieve lasting success in any area of your life, you must first learn to lead yourself. And leading yourself begins with knowing who you are and what you stand for. I remember working with a father, let me call him Michael, who came to me feeling completely disconnected from what mattered most to him. He was working 60-hour weeks, climbing the corporate ladder, achieving what looked like success from the outside, but he confessed to me, "Stephen, I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I'm working for my family, but I never see them. I'm building a career, but I don't even know why anymore." When we dug deeper, Michael realized he had lost touch with his personal mission. He had become so focused on external measures of success that he'd forgotten his internal compass. His personal mission, to be a loving husband and father, to model integrity and service, had gotten buried under the urgent demands of daily life. So we started with a simple practice. Every morning before checking email, before jumping into the day's activities, Michael would spend 5 minutes reconnecting with his personal mission. Not his to-do list, his to-be list. He would ask himself, what kind of person do I want to become today? How can my actions today reflect my deepest value? Now here's what happened. Within just a few weeks, Michael's entire approach to work changed. He didn't leave his job, but he began to see it differently. Instead of working to escape his family, he was working to serve them. Instead of climbing the ladder for status, he was building skills to better serve others. His personal mission had become his true north, guiding every decision. This is what I call character-based security. When you're clear on your mission, your sense of worth comes from living your values, not from external validation. You become unstoppable because you're not easily swayed by circumstances, by other people's agendas, or by the changing winds of public opinion. Your personal mission is like your constitution. It's the unchanging core that guides every decision, every priority, every response. When you align with it each morning, you're not just planning your day, you're choosing your character. The second daily habit is what I call proactive response practice. And this habit alone can revolutionize every area of your life. Let me share with you one of the most profound discoveries I've made about human nature. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our greatest power, the freedom to choose our response. This is what separates human beings from animals, what separates victims from leaders, what separates reactive people. I remember a manager who came to me after having an explosive argument with his teenage son. He said, "Stephen, I don't know what came over me. My son came home late and I just lost it. I said things I didn't mean, and now he won't even talk to me." Now here's the counterintuitive insight that changed everything for this father. Most people think being proactive means taking action, being assertive, making things happen. But true proactivity begins with taking responsibility for your response, not just your actions, but your reaction. So we developed a simple daily practice. Throughout each day, whenever something happened, whether his son was late, whether a colleague was difficult, whether traffic was slow, he would practice what I call the pause. Before reacting, he would take a moment and ask himself, what response would be most aligned with my character and values? Within weeks, his relationship with his son began to transform. He was no longer at the mercy of circumstances or other people's behavior. He had become, quite literally, the author of his own responses. And when you become responsible in this way, you become truly unstoppable. Because your effectiveness no longer depends on external conditions, it flows from your character. The third daily habit is big rocks priority planning, and it's based on a principle that can transform not just your productivity, but your entire sense of fulfillment. You see, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. I once worked with a woman, let me call her Sarah, who was the epitome of a busy person. She was always moving, always responding, always putting out fires. But she came to me feeling completely empty. "Stephen," she said, "I'm exhausted at the end of every day, but I can't point to anything meaningful I've accomplished." Sarah had fallen into what I call the urgency trap. She was letting the urgent crowd out the important. Her days were filled with other people's priorities, not her own. She was living a life of activity, but not a life of meaning. So we introduced a simple practice. Each morning, before looking at emails or checking her phone, Sarah would identify her big rocks, the 2 or 3 most important things that truly aligned with her personal mission and her key roles as a mother, professional, and human being. Now here's what she discovered. Important activities are rarely urgent, and urgent activities are rarely important. Her big rocks were things like having meaningful conversations with her children, working on strategic projects that would advance her career, taking care of her health. None of these things screamed for attention like her inbox did, but they were what truly mattered. When you put first things first consistently, something remarkable happens. You create a life of meaning rather than a life of mere activity. Sarah became unstoppable because her energy was flowing toward what mattered most, not just toward what screamed the loudest. The fourth daily habit is circle of influence focus. And this habit alone can free you from the frustration and powerlessness that plague so many people today. Let me share with you a paradigm shift that can transform how you approach every challenge in your life. I once worked with a team leader named James who was constantly stressed about things he couldn't control: the economy, his company stock price, his boss's moods, his competitors' actions. He would spend hours in meetings complaining about these issues, getting more and more frustrated, but accomplishing nothing. His team was demoralized, and James himself was burning out. When I introduced him to what I call the circle of concern versus the circle of influence, everything changed. You see, reactive people focus their time and energy on their circle of concern, all the things they worry about but can't actually control: the weather, other people's opinions, past mistakes, future uncertainties. Proactive people, however, focus on their circle of influence, the things they can actually impact. So James began a simple daily practice. Throughout each day, whenever he encountered a problem or felt himself getting frustrated, he would ask, "Is this within my circle of influence?" If the answer was yes, he would take action. If the answer was no, he would consciously let it go and redirect his energy. Instead of worrying about the economy, James focused on his team's productivity. Instead of complaining about his boss, he focused on his own performance and reliability. Instead of stressing about competitors, he focused on serving his customers better. Here's the remarkable thing that happened. When James began focusing exclusively on his circle of influence, it actually began to expand. His boss started asking for his input because he had become more trustworthy and effective. His team's performance improved, which gave him more credibility in the organization. His influence grew precisely because he stopped trying to control things beyond his control. You become unstoppable when you focus your mental and emotional energy on what you can actually control: your attitude, your effort, your responses, your character, because you're no longer wasting precious energy on things beyond your influence. The fifth daily habit is empathic listening practice, and it's based on one of the most powerful principles of human relations: seek first to understand, then to be understood. I remember a mother who came to me frustrated about her teenage daughter. "Stephen, she won't talk to me anymore. Every time I try to help her, she just shuts down or gets angry." When I observed their interactions, I discovered something fascinating. This mother, who loved her daughter deeply, was listening with the intent to reply, not to understand. The moment her daughter shared a problem, Mom would jump in with advice, solutions, or her own similar experiences. So we tried something different. I asked her to commit to just one empathic conversation each day with her daughter, not to fix, not to advise, not to share her own stories, just to understand. To listen not just to her daughter's words, but to her feelings and the meaning behind them. To put away distractions, look with her eyes, listen with her ears, and feel with her heart. The transformation was remarkable. Within days, her daughter began opening up again. Why? Because she felt truly heard and valued. Most people don't need your advice. They need your understanding. When you seek first to understand, you move from someone who talks to someone who truly influences. You become unstoppable in relationships because you're meeting the deepest human need, the need to be understood. The sixth daily habit is win/win opportunity seeking, and it's rooted in one of the most liberating paradigm shifts you can make about human interaction. I once worked with a salesperson named Robert who was struggling despite being talented and hardworking. His approach was what I call win/lose thinking. He saw every negotiation as a battle where someone had to lose for him to win. His customers sensed this, and even when he made sales, they often felt manipulated and rarely returned. When we introduced Robert to abundance thinking, everything changed. You see, most people think life is a zero-sum game. If I win, you must lose. But abundance thinking recognizes that there are usually possibilities for mutual benefit if we're creative and principled enough to find them. Robert began a simple daily practice. In every interaction, whether with customers, colleagues, or even his family, he would ask, how can we both win here? How can we create value together? Instead of trying to get the best deal for himself, he started looking for solutions that genuinely served his customers' needs while also meeting his own. The transformation was remarkable. His sales increased, but more importantly, he built lasting relationships. Customers began referring others to him because they trusted him to look out for their interests too. When you approach life with win/win thinking, you become unstoppable because people want to work with you, not against you. They know you're seeking their success as well as your own. The seventh and final daily habit is what I call daily renewal, and it's based on what I've found to be the most neglected principle of effectiveness. Let me illustrate with a story that might sound familiar. Imagine a woodcutter who works tirelessly, sawing tree after tree. As the day progresses, his saw becomes duller and duller. In cutting each tree takes longer and requires more effort. A passerby suggests, "Why don't you take a break and sharpen your saw?" The woodcutter replies, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy cutting trees." I once worked with an executive named Lisa who was living this exact scenario. She was working 70-hour weeks, skipping meals, canceling exercise, missing family dinners, all in the name of productivity. She came to me exhausted and said, "Stephen, I feel like I'm running on empty, but I can't afford to slow down." Lisa had forgotten what I call the production capability balance. She was so focused on production, the results, the output, the harvest, that she was neglecting production capability, her ability to produce. Like that farmer who's so focused on harvesting that he never maintains his equipment. Lisa's tools were breaking down, so we introduced a simple but revolutionary practice, 30 minutes of daily renewal across 4 dimensions of her life. Physical renewal through exercise and proper nutrition, mental renewal through reading and learning, spiritual renewal through meditation, time in nature, and service to others, and social emotional renewal through meaningful relationships and deep conversations. At first, Lisa resisted. "I don't have 30 minutes to spare," she said, but here's the paradox I've discovered. This habit makes you unstoppable precisely because it seems counterintuitive. You slow down in order to speed up. You rest in order to become more productive. Within weeks, Lisa found she had more energy, clearer thinking, and better relationships. She was able to live all the other habits we've discussed with greater excellence because she was maintaining her capacity to be effective. You can't give what you don't have, and daily renewal ensures you always have something meaningful to give. Now let me tell you about Sarah, a marketing executive who came to me feeling completely stuck. She had achieved what looked like success from the outside, good salary, respected position, nice home, but inside she felt overwhelmed and unfulfilled. "Stephen, she said. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I'm busy all the time, but I don't feel like I'm making any real progress in what matters most. Sarah decided to implement these 7 daily habits over 90 days. And what happened was nothing short of remarkable. In the first 2 weeks, she focused on the foundation: morning mission alignment and proactive response practice. I felt like I was waking up for the first time, she told me. I realized I'd been living on autopilot, reacting to whatever came my way instead of choosing my responses based on my values. By weeks 3 through 6, as she added Big Rocks planning and circle of influence focus, something interesting happened. Her stress levels actually decreased even as her effectiveness increased. She was working fewer hours, but accomplishing more meaningful work because she was clear on what truly mattered. The breakthrough came in weeks 7 through 12 when she began practicing empathic listening and win/win seeking. Her relationships transformed dramatically. Her team's performance soared because they felt truly heard and valued. Her marriage improved because she was seeking to understand rather than just to be understood. By day 90, Sarah wasn't just more productive, she was a fundamentally different person. More confident, more peaceful, more influential. But here's what's truly remarkable about these 7 habits. They don't just add to each other, they multiply. What I call the upward spiral effect. You see, when you align your daily actions with your mission, you naturally become more proactive. When you focus on your priorities and your circle of influence, you have more energy for building relationships. And when you renew yourself daily, you have the capacity to live all the other habits with excellence. This works because it's based on natural laws, universal principles that govern human effectiveness, regardless of your background, your circumstances, or your personality type. These aren't techniques that work for some people. They're character-building practices that work for anyone willing to live by principle. When you practice these 7 habits consistently, something profound happens. You don't just become more effective, you become the kind of person who naturally creates extraordinary results. You develop what I call character-based security, where your sense of worth comes from living your values, not from external circumstances or other people's opinions. But here's what's truly beautiful about this transformation. It doesn't stop with you. Your change touches everyone around you. Your family experiences a more present, principled version of you. Your team benefits from your character-centered leadership. Your community gains from your service and contribution. When you become principle-centered, you create ripples of positive influence that extend far beyond what you can see. So here's my challenge to you. Choose 3 of these 7 habits. Commit to practicing them for the next 30 days. Don't focus on perfection. Focus on consistency and character development. Start small, but start today. Remember, private victory precedes public victory. The person you become through these daily disciplines is the foundation of every success you'll ever achieve. You have within you the capacity to become truly unstoppable.